Coming up this week on Arts Matter, we're going to visit artist Rob MacDougall in his studio right here in Oakville. What do Mike Weir, Wayne Gretzky, Roberto Alomar, Tim Horton, Rocket Richard, Don Cherry, and Ron McLean have in common? They've all been painted by Oakville artist Rob MacDougall. Megan Whittington is with Rob in his studio, discovering how his passion for sports and arts have created his career.
Thanks, Deb. I'm here with Rob MacDougall. Very pleased to be here. We are talking about bridging sports, art, and life. And starting right from one of the first masterpieces Rob created. I see it was a different signature back then.
Yes.
And so what was the inspiration behind...
I have no idea, actually. I don't know what the inspiration. It was a kindergarten class. And my mom kept it, and so I thought, getting interviewed, I should show my first inspiration and then see how I progressed.
And leading to some of the masterpieces on the wall here. Mm-hmm. Fantastic. I like your use of color.
Thank you.
In this.
And as a matter of fact, I still use it when we get over to that section. You'll see I use the same color red.
The reds. So the reds have been predominant in your career then?
I've been in the red.
Now, we're going to see a little bit about what you do in portraiture and what you do in caricature. And I'm just wondering, what would you define this one as?
That's a caricature. Looks like a cat to me. I don't know.
I have no idea. Very good cut.
This was just, like I say, it's just inspiration. I mean, the way things have gone in my life, I mean, I think if you go... as far as children are concerned, when you do something like that and you bring it home and you unfold it and show it to your mom and she goes, wow, that's really good. And that's half the battle of being an artist, is when somebody pats you on the back and says, wow, that's really good.
Great work.
Because it makes you feel worthy. So you keep drawing, and then you keep putting pictures in front of your parents' noses saying, what do you think of that? What do you think of that? Well, they're never going to say, wow, that's not very good. Yeah. But that's how I got inspired.
Get involved, right?
Well, actually, and
your friends.
Yeah, I was pretty inspired. My dad was actually a fairly good cartoonist. I mean, he was a welder by trade, but he'd always come home and I'd show him what I did, and then he would do this little drawing. So it was exciting to see him, communicating with me that way. That was inspiring. And you're right. I mean, when I was at school,
would he teach you some of those techniques too? His own techniques?
No. Most of his work was done on cigarette packages. Seriously, he'd do it on the back, do a little drawing. He said, "Check that out,"
Yeah.
So I think, like anybody, when you're at school and you're in a classroom, and all of a sudden you do a piece that everybody goes, wow. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I mean, everybody has an ego type of thing, wow, I actually feel like I'm worthy.
Yes, yeah, the validation, right, as an artist. Mm-hmm. Now, when did you know yourself that this was the path that you wanted to go down?
Well, I was one of those type of people that took my art for granted. Like, instead of really working on it, I wanted to be normal. I wanted to play road hockey. Yeah. I wanted to play lacrosse. I did everything like what everybody else was doing. Like, my art was sort of like my little thing. Yeah. I never really announced it to people what I did. And so my path into the art world would have happened in my 20 years old. That's when I discovered that I wasn't really good at anything else.
Or that you're so good in this one area.
I'll tell you right now, I mean, if you want to jump ahead, when I did finally go to art school, if you wanted to rank me based out of 10 out of the 360 kids that were in the school, I would have been about a 2 out of 10. So I was, it was a bit of a shock. You know,
yeah.
I was like the big fish
Yeah.
in the little pond when I was in my little town, but then all of a sudden you go to a school like Ontario College of Art in Toronto, which was like the, I guess it's the mecca for the students.
Absolutely.
Back then. Getting accepted was great.
Qualify to be in, absolutely.
Yeah, but then all of a sudden getting an eye-opening experience of realizing that, wow, I'm not very good. And you know what?
You felt that way in the school as you were studying?
Oh, yeah. I mean, no. Well, I had to either, you know, I had to figure it out because that's the way it is. I mean, if you want to stay at a 3 out of 10, or do you want to shoot for the sky, right? So
how did you figure it out? What?
It wasn't hard.
How did you navigate?
How did I navigate? Well, I stopped sitting on my rear end and thinking how good I was, and I actually really applied myself. Mm-hmm. And I really worked hard. I mean, in the summer times, I used to roof houses, and I used to make pretty good money, and I would invest into my business. And over in that section of the studio, I have books. I remember the very first book I bought. It's in that case there, but that's what I did. I became a student of the game. Mm-hmm. You know, I was one of those guys. You remember that commercial, Motaglini instead of Modigliani? I didn't know. Monet looked like Monet to me, right?
Yes, yeah.
So, but right. I mean, I got into understanding, and there were people that I had never seen before that were fantastic artists. And you know, the one thing about being an artist is that you're allowed to look over someone's shoulder and see what they're doing, and you can actually copy them and get away with it. The teacher won't get mad at you. But really, a compilation of an artist is a little bit of everything that we take into our own lives and say, hey, this works for me, and that works for me, and I'll borrow a little bit of this guy, a little bit of this girl, you know, and all of a sudden you come up with your own unique style.
Not all artists get there either. I mean, this is
I'm not defining. There yet. I'd like to think that I'm not there yet.
But you definitely have a niche. Like, you definitely have your style and something that defines, I don't know if we can say this defines you, but when someone looks at your work, they know it's your work. You've created a look that is, and again...
But I'm not trying to do that. I mean, whatever I'm doing, I think it's the way it should be done. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that can knock other people off, style-wise. Yeah. And you see it all the time. So to try to be unique, I mean, that's what I'm trying to be. But
absolutely.
I'm probably, you know, there's a lot of people out there that do similar to what I do, but I try to do my best just to be me as much as I can be in what I do, you know.
And so what is it that you like to bring to your art? What are the sort of the mediums you like to use? And, you know, leaves are a reoccurring... and so tell us a little bit about, you know...
Well, if you think about it, I mean... okay, I do some stuff with leaves that... I mean, I spent my whole life raking leaves, right? And you never really think when you're raking leaves... that, well, there's money to be made in those things. But, I discovered that, I don't know if you're familiar, but I'm sure people are, of a character called Peter Puck.
Yes.
And it was back in the 60s, 70s. They're trying to sell the game of hockey to the Americans. And so they had a puck with legs and hockey gloves and whatnot. So I've been a huge proponent of trying to do everything Canadian. Mm-hmm. And so I took the puck out and put a maple leaf in, and I've tried to develop this character for Canadian people, right? So that's how it happened. But I mean, if you're like most kids, you got to go pick the leaves. And I was saying earlier, like, you got a 50-year-old man climbing trees in the fall in the town of Oakville. I've had a few funny experiences with people. I had one woman, I remember picking leaves out of a tree, and she stood underneath my ladder, and one of the leaves went like this to the ground, And she picked it up, and I thought she was going to give it to me. And she put it in her purse and took off. Right? She thought it was worth some money.
She was an artist too.
I have no idea. No, I think she was on a day pass actually.
Oh no. Yes. Wow.
So no, I've actually had a lot of fun with creating things with leaves. You know, as you can see with my Don Cherry print that I did. These leaves were actually picked right at the Rose Cherry. Where the Rose Cherry home was built in Milton. Mm-hmm. So I thought it would be nice to offset the painting with these leaves. And when we presented this on TV on Coach's Corner, I was saying earlier that the biggest reaction that we got were, wow, those leaves are awesome. So it kind of defeated the middle part, but that's when I really got into the fact that I wanted to do stuff that was really Canadian. And like this painting over here, I know that we're moving a bit, but I literally glued down all these leaves, and I made sure that my edge of my painting was the actual shape of the leaves as the border. And that
Isn't that amazing?
That was for the Team Canada, the team that went to Manchester, England. That's the reason why we've got the
leaf there.
The Union Jack, stuff like that.
So how do you get your commissions? I mean, how did this start with your relationship with Don Cherry, for example?
I actually approached Don Cherry in 1985 when I graduated from art school. I wanted to be involved in sports illustration, and so I contacted him, and it was the greatest thing to get a message on your answer machine. Hello, Rob. This is Don Cherry here. You know, I was pretty pumped when I got that message back. So, anyways, I wound up being his cartoonist on his television show. He had a TV show called The Grapevine.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And it was great. We had a lot of fun there. He actually had me at the bar on one show. Told me that I wasn't allowed to say a word. He says, "You're not allowed to, don't say a word, because if you do, I got to pay you." And I went, "Okay, that's great." So I'm standing at the bar, and he's got a couple of guests on the show, and he asked me a question.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So I looked at him, and there's like, you know what it's like with television.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
not supposed to pause, right? And I just looked at him, and I said, "You want the answer?" I said, "This is going to cost you, you know." So, but from there, then I wound up doing, I think I've done 4 of his Rock'em Sock'em over the years. Actually, this one right here is one of the covers.
Wow.
He's big on blue. And obviously I had to exaggerate the fact of the size of these dogs and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I forgot what cover that was. I think that was 15, number 15.
Wow.
But as you see, I like to distort. I like to have fun with caricatures, and I think it really stems from the fact that there's so many photorealism artists out there that I always like to think that it's best to stretch things and make things happen, you know.
Rob, we want to see a little bit about how you create, and I think this is a good moment to have a bit of a break, and we'll meet up with you again in front of Rob's studio space. Thank you. Thanks.
No problem.